My Lord and my God, I firmly believe that you are here, that you see me, that you hear me. I adore you with profound reverence. I ask your forgiveness for my sins and the grace to make this time of prayer fruitful. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me. Jesus, in this section of the Gospel that we are reading these days in the Mass, you are very clearly and directly showing the double standards of the Pharisees. You are pointing out to them and to their listeners, their followers, their own hypocrisies, how they claim one thing and do another, how they expect something of others but not of themselves, how they miss the most important parts of the law of God, and how they are quick to judge themselves superior and to condemn others. Jesus, it's so good for us to read these passages because you are also speaking to us. You also want to show us our own double standards, our own hypocrisies, the way that we misjudge ourselves and others, the way that we misprioritize things in the spiritual life. And we thank you for this because we don't want to be what you show them to be, whitewashed tombs that look good on the outside but on the inside are full of dead men's bones. Jesus, we want to do good, but we want to have a good heart. We want an internal and interior conversion so that our goodness comes from the union of our hearts and our souls with you. And the one aspect that you bring to light in today's gospel is the tendency of the Pharisees and our own tendency to judge ourselves superior, especially superior, morally superior to those who have gone before us. And Jesus, you point out to the Pharisees that they are quick to build monuments to the prophets, and they say, we would never have taken part in the stoning and the killing of our prophets the way that our fathers did. And Jesus, you point out to them that exactly because they are the sons of their fathers, most probably, most certainly, they would have taken part in the very same actions that their fathers did. And how quick we are, Jesus, to think of ourselves also as morally superior. We look back at terrible things that have happened in the past, terrible regimes, the awful and evil actions of some who have gone before us. And we are quick to say, we would never have done that. If I was in that situation, I would never have acted as they did. And perhaps we're also guilty of doing that now as we're reading this section in the Gospel. We can think, we would never be one of the Pharisees. We would have been one of the disciples of Jesus. We would never have rejected Jesus. Of course, if we were there, we would have accepted him on his word and become his followers. And Jesus, you say to us, you say to them, and you say to us in this kind of response, not so fast. You don't know how you would have acted in that situation, in that context, if you had been raised in the way that they were raised, if you were living in those circumstances. Perhaps you and I would have done the very same things. Now, this doesn't mean that we must just blame evil on situation and circumstances and context. No. Nor does it mean that we don't have moral agency, moral responsibility, and moral culpability in the decisions we do make. No. We are culpable for our decisions, and we are not just a product of our situation, context, and circumstances. Nor should we diminish evil actions just because of their circumstance or context. No, we need to recognize evil as evil. We need to renounce and reject it We ought to be horrified at the evil actions committed in our time and in the past. But we should be slow to think ourselves morally superior, or to assume that we would have not done the same thing in that situation. We should rather be quick to say, "There, but for the grace of God, go I." If it wasn't for God's grace and action in my life, His mercy in letting me be born in this time and this situation to my family, if it weren't for these things, perhaps I would have been just as or more evil than others. Perhaps I would have responded to that situation with far more culpable actions. Perhaps I would have been no better than my fathers in taking part in their actions to kill and to stone the prophets. No better than the Pharisees who rejected Jesus. No different from others who have committed atrocities in our time and in our past, but rather recognizing our shared frail humanity, recognizing that we too are capable of the most awful evils, and we have been preserved from so much because of what God has given us. There, but for the grace of God, go I. I might have done the very same things had the Lord not protected me by not putting me in that situation. Jesus, you want us to judge evil and to judge it severely, to reject it entirely. But you want us to be slow to judge the moral culpability of others and to be very slow to judge our own moral superiority. In his great work, Mere Christianity, C.S. Lewis has a beautiful passage that speaks about this propensity of ours to be too quick to judge ourselves positively and others negatively. He says this: human beings judge one another by their external actions. God judges them by their moral choices. When a neurotic who has a pathological horror of cats forces himself to pick up a cat for some good reason, it is quite possible that in God's eyes he has shown more courage than a healthy man may have shown in winning the Victoria Cross, a medal of bravery. He says, when a man who has been perverted from his youth and taught that cruelty is the right thing does some tiny little act of kindness or refrains from some cruelty, he may, in God's eyes, be doing more than you and I would do if we gave up life itself for a friend. He goes on and he says, it is well to put this the other way round. Some of us, who seem quite nice people, may in fact have made so little use of good heredity and good upbringing that we are really worse than those whom we regard as fiends. Can we, he says, be quite certain how we should have behaved if we had been saddled with the psychological outfit, and then with the bad upbringing, and then with the power, say, of Himmler? That is why Christians are told not to judge. We see only the results which a man's choices make out of his raw material. But God does not judge him on the raw material at all, but on what he has done with it. And so, Jesus, we ask that you help us to be quick to recognize evil, to take it as a warning, as a recognition of our own frailty, to be slow to judge moral culpability, whether of another or our own, and instead of being content in our own presumed or perceived moral superiority, to rest on our moral laurels, rather to recognize that more is required of us, more is asked of us, and more will be demanded of us in the day of judgment. And so, recognizing our frailty, grateful for your mercy, and dependent on your grace, may we become who you want us to be here and now. I thank you, my God, for the good resolutions, affections, and inspirations that you have communicated to me in this time of prayer. I ask your help to put them into effect. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me.